Welcome, everybody, to Sports Shorts Daily. Ronnie Rance, Tommy Christ, and Sports Shorts presented by Lavis Casino. TK's at Court Street Cafe in Port Allen, Louisiana. A great place to go by for lunch. We'll tell you plenty more about it. Ronnie Rance, I'm in the Lavis, presented by Lavis in the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame studio. On today's show, we'll talk a little LSU baseball. The Tigers. It was good and bad last night. We'll get into that, but at the end of the day, LSU had a big win, and the offense, top to bottom, came around a little bit. And so we'll talk about the LSU Tigers win over Louisiana Tech. LSU Hoops, is there a path for them to become a number 7 seed in the NCAA tournament? Because, look, there's no difference between 8 or 9. We'll get into that. Big game tonight for the Tigers against Georgia, and a whole lot more. Don't go anywhere. Sports Shorts presented by LaBears, rolling on right after this. All right, Chief. Technical difficulties here. We appreciate everybody for sticking with us. I don't know what's going on with the laptop today. Got a few gremlins in there. TK, you over at Court Street Cafe. LSU Baseball had a big win last night, but they got some bad news. For those that watched the game, saw the box score, wondering what's going on with LSU Baseball, A.J. Lavis, their third starter, who's now in his 14th year at LSU, made his 18th appearance of his career. He's already thrown 70-something innings. He had about as bad a start as you possibly could, Tommy.
Not able to watch the game, but I've got the box score, and you know me, I always study the box scores. But you know, he just got hit around a little bit. I don't know if it was just one of them days, or you know, he only walked one guy, but you know, they put the bat on the ball. I mean, Louisiana Tech's got a good team, and they put the bat on the ball, made some things happen, and got out to the lead. And fortunately, the offense for LSU finally showed up.
A.J. Lavis, who last year had a no-hitter into the 8th inning in a tough loss that he had over against Oklahoma in Houston. Last night he goes 3 2/3. He strikes out 8, which is unbelievable. He walks only 1, as you mentioned, so nothing wrong there. But 11 hits is troubling, Tommy. I mean, you know, you want to give up a hit an inning or less, and he gave up basically 3 hits an inning, and then some. So A.J. Lavis, 11 hits in his first outing against Louisiana Tech. And look, I mean, you know, in baseball, it's one of those sports where you generally, Tommy, one game does not give you the whole story. But that's troubling, man. That's troubling that A.J. Lavis's stuff in year 4 is able to give up 11 hits in 3 1/3 innings. And I mean, now all of a sudden, I mean, I got to believe that we're going back to square one. I mean, that confidence. I mean, what he did maybe a year ago, that's forgotten now.
Well, his next start is going to be very important. His outing. I mean, his pitch count. Are they hitting the ball? Are they hitting the ball hard? I mean, that's all part of a lot of layers here. So his next start, whenever that may be, is going to be extremely important for this pitching staff, for this team. And, you know, he's got to try to go back, like you said, what an outing against Oklahoma, you know, back in the day, a couple of years ago. But he's got to find that mentally. I mean, Alan Dunn's got to get in there, get between his ears, and maybe tweak a mechanic just to make him get some confidence. I mean, all kind of little things you can do there. But as I said, his next outing, going to have all eyes on it.
LSU got some nice news. You being a former lefty pitcher, always kind of want to see what's going on with the lefties. But Javin Coleman, a freshman, got a chance to get in there after LSU down 4-0. A.J. Lavis is getting hit all over the ballpark. LSU offensively got off to a slow start, and now you think, are the Tigers going to lose 2 out of 3 in its opening, series? And then, imagine today's show would have a completely different tone as opposed to what happened. They ended up winning 16-7. But Javin Colvin comes in. He strikes out 7, only walks 1, only gives up 1 hit. All of a sudden now, LSU thinks they might have found somebody.
Well, let's hope they did. That's an impressive outing. It's a good outing. It's a confidence builder, and hopefully he can build on that. And, you can't have too many pitchers. You can't have too many arms, especially, SEC play starts in about a month. So let's hope Coleman can keep that work up.
How about as far as the emphasis that you put on, it's not a midweek game. It's not an SEC game, but through 3 games, LSU's 2-1. It looked like they were going to be 1-2, but then all of a sudden, bam, they flipped the switch midway through that game and offense got going. But what's your takeaway from this team through 3 games based on what you saw and what you read versus what you knew about LSU baseball going into the season?
Well, I think if you look at all the question marks or the things you wanted to find out before 3 games, we learned a little bit about Jaden Hill, Landon Marceau. Milazzo threw a guy out the other day. And some guys woke up the bats last night. People want to react immediately. Like Devin said yesterday, overreaction Monday. But, you have to understand, and you've been there, done that. It's a long season. 1 game, 1 snapshot, 1 3-game series, albeit Saturday, Sunday, Monday, is not a true indicator, but it is an indicator, and it causes you to have questions going forward. Some of them kind of resolved a little bit, some of them not. Got a tough game Wednesday night, tomorrow night in Lafayette against a team that took 2 out of 3 from a good Tulane team in New Orleans this past weekend, and they hit the ball, so the pitching staff's going to test it, no doubt, this weekend. So really, I'm not concerned. I'm not hitting a panic button. I'm just going to continue to want some questions answered, which is what you got to do before conference play starts. Find out who can do it, who can't, and get it out there. Get some guys out there that can hit the ball. Get some guys that can get people out.
There's Dylan Cruz, 2 home runs now through 3 games. The most impressive of those home runs came on Sunday when LSU lost to Air Force and hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball from a 6'6" right-handed pitcher out of the ballpark, and that was arguably as hard a hit baseball as I've ever seen in Alex Box Stadium. He hits another home run last night. Dylan Cruz now, Tommy, goes 3 for 4 last night. Paul Maneri said that he's the best position player freshman LSU's had since Alex Bregman, and he is absolutely living up to those expectations through the first 3 games.
Well, he's hitting 583 now. He's not going to keep hitting 583. He's not going to hit 500. We know that. But it's a great start. It's a confidence builder. And Ronnie, so much of it is confidence. When you get into that batter's box and you feel like you're going to get a hit, you got a better chance than that guy that gets in there that's struggling and, oh, no, am I going to strike out again? Am I going to get a good pitch to hit? Obviously, he's demonstrated in 3 games that he knows what he's doing at the plate. He knows the strike zone. He puts the sweet spot on the ball. And looks good right now. You got a guy like that leading off that can set the table and get the team going. I think it's a big plus. He's so far, the early small snapshot, he's lived up to the billing.
The Alex Box last night, Tommy, was playing like Alex Box in May or June. There were 6 home runs hit in that game, 3 by Tech, 3 by LSU. For the Tigers, Cruz had his second of the year. Gavin Dugai had the big grand slam, which really got them back in the game and broke the heart of Louisiana Tech. Good to see Dugai swinging the lumber and hitting RBIs, because that's what they need. They need him to be that 6-hole, 5-hole, whatever, that may not hit for a super high average, but drives the ball off the wall and out the ballpark. Jordan Thompson, who probably weighs about as much as just my left leg from the thigh down. He's light in the seat. But Jordan Thompson hit a home run, and it was a no-doubter out to left center field, which that was a surprise. He's the youngster that's playing third base right now, with to figure out that position. So LSU had 10 different batters get hits in the game, 16 hits, actually 14 hits overall, 10 different batters had base hits in that game, and they ended up hitting 3 home runs. I'm sorry, wait, hang on, make sure 16 hits total, 14 hits total for LSU. Louisiana Tech also had 14 hits as well in the ball game. LSU pitching though, AJ Lavis, if he doesn't come back this next Sunday and go back to being AJ, if he has another wonky outing, Tommy, and he goes 3 or 4 innings and he gives up 7 or 8 hits, and I mean, a panic button then?
I think so. Maybe you move him to the bullpen, long relief, try to get him to be a 6th or 7th inning guy to hold it over for the closers. Obviously it's up to Paul Maneri and Alan Dunn, but we just I don't want to hit the panic button yet. Everybody has a bad outing. I mean, the best pitchers in the world get roughed up every now and then. So I'm willing to wait and see. Let's take a look at the next outing and let's look at all the layers. Did they hit the ball? Did they hit it hard? Were any errors made behind it? But most importantly, are you throwing strikes? Or you commanding all your pitches? I mean, because sometimes you get a guy you're not feeling that breaking ball, so then the pitching coach is not going to call it because he knows it's not working. So I mean, there's lots of things to look at here, but mainly I think Lavis has got to turn the page. Forget about Monday night. Go out there and be the best you can be the next time they hand you the ball.
Matthew Beck got in the ball game, pitched an inning, gave up a hit. Hasty gave a solo homer in his 1 inning of work. It was nice to see a couple lefties get in the game. LSU had Coleman and Hasty. There was a time 3 years ago, where they didn't have a lefty on the roster. So, good to see that they've got 3 or 4 guys that have already pitched this year that are left-handed through the first 3 games. LSU has a day off. Then Wednesday, big game that'll be on ESPN Plus from Lafayette. That's a 6 o'clock start, taking on the Raging Cajuns. Matt Diggs in his 2nd year as the head coach there, of course, following the legend Tony Robichaux, who it's just still hard, Tommy, to think about that Tony Robichaux at 57, 58 years old passes away suddenly. We're now in the 2nd baseball season since he was the head coach. And I mean, it's just every time I go to a UL game, I'll be there Wednesday night. It's still weird to see him not in that dugout.
It really is. Somebody that, I knew since we competed against each other in college and was over there many times to do his games and heard him speak at the Dunham School a few years back. And, it was, and this year, Ronnie, as you know, I always send all my friends who are coaches a little message at the beginning of the season. Hey, best of luck this season. And, when I'm going through my list and I'm sending it to Coach Maneri and Seth Thibodeau and Matt Reiser and Joe Sherman, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I would have normally sent one to Tony and did not get to do that again. And it's sad. But Matt Diggs, I heard him speak last year at a local high school, like a first pitch banquet thing. And I was really impressed with Matt Diggs. He's got an interesting story. For those of you who have never heard it, he appreciates his opportunity. He understands a lot about what Tony Robichaux meant to Raging Cajun baseball into that Lafayette community. And I think he's doing a fine job.
Matt Diggs is a guy who believe it or not, I've known a long time. I first met Matt, I believe, when he was at Arkansas as an assistant, and then we really met at A&M. We had a mutual friend. And Matt Diggs was on the staff at A&M 10, 11 years ago and, looking like things were going to be great. This young up-and-coming coach, he's at a big-time program. I mean, his path was set. And self-admitted, had a drinking problem, was an alcoholic, and messed up his opportunity there. And a good friend of his had to let him go. And there was a couple of years where he didn't think he was going to be back coaching again at a high level. and Tony gave him a second chance. The guy had kind of cleaned up his life and found the Lord and stopped drinking. And Tony gave him a second chance, and it was a great decision not only for Tony and the Raging Cajun program because he was their hitting coach when they had that couple of years there. They were number 1 in the country at one point and hosted a super regional. They lost to Mike Bianco and Ole Miss, and Raging Cajun fans never forgot that, and they loved Diggs. And then, of course, he went on to have a lot of success at Sam Houston as the head coach at Sam Houston State. And now that he's back, he's a guy that's grounded, has his family together, has his personal life together, has his faith very similar messages as Tony Robichaux. I mean, he's probably a little more fire and brimstone than Tony, but it's a perfect fit. And I do think in the long run, Matt Deggs will find a home in Lafayette and be there for the long haul. I believe him. I believe he's a great coach and he's a good guy. He's got a good staff. BJ Ryan is his pitching coach, by the way, former Major League Baseball All-Star with the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a second year as their pitching coach.
Well, and Tony Robichaux giving him another chance speaks to the great legacy of Tony Robichaux, because he was, I used to love his thing when he'd say, baseball coach is what I do. It's not who I am. He said that many and many a time. And when you think about that, I mean, that tells you what Tony, he believed in kids. He believed in coaches. He believed in the fans. And baseball was just what he did. It wasn't who he was. And that the Matt Deggs story of landing back in Lafayette is just further proof of that. I think Deggs is going to do a fine job. I'll be happy to see him have great success for himself, but mostly for the Raging Cajun baseball program, which has such a great tradition, and that ballpark is just fabulous. I mean, everything going in the right direction. Let's hope Deggs can keep going what Tony Robichaux began the path of. And by the way, you mentioned Ole Miss. They're now the #1 team in the nation.
What's interesting about Tony Robichaux passed in the summer of 2019, and at the beginning of the 2020 season, they unveiled a statue of Tony Robichaux outside the stadium. And for those that maybe have never seen it, it's really great because it really sums up who he was. It's a statue, Tommy. He's in his uniform. He's got his Oakleys on his hat, which he always had, and he's talking to his team, and it's like 5 guys or 6 guys on a knee in front of him, and they're listening to him, talk. I think he's got his hand on his hip or something. And it's just an image you've seen many, many times. And it's a great statue. And it was the players, his former players, that paid for the statue, that got it built and installed, and they got it done in less than 8 months or something, 8-9 months, which is incredible because you know how those things are; they take forever. And I give them so much credit. And I was there for the unveiling of it last year or whatever. It was just it was pretty awesome. So looking forward to that game Wednesday. Always a great rivalry between LSU and UL in baseball. And it'll be a fantastic. By the way, Brennan Bro in year 6, the last member of the Marucci White Sox, still active. The last guy I coached, Tommy, still active. I haven't coached summer baseball, travel ball in a few years, ever since I took over for the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Brennan, one of my favorites. He played LSU a few years. He was in the Rally Possum game when he got 3 hits in that game. That's how old he is. And then he's now in his 6th year at UL thanks to COVID. He got an extra year. Got a big double off the wall or something in the extra innings against Tulane, and starting in left field. So it'll be fun to see him, and best of luck to Brennan Bro and as the Tigers go for a victory. Tell me about LSU basketball tonight, TK.
Well, they're on the road against Georgia. They're on a 3-game win streak. They're 5.5 points favorites against the Bulldogs in Athens. 6 o'clock tip, Louisiana time. I want to see if Will Wade and this team can keep the momentum they built with that nice win against Tennessee, another win the other day against Auburn. Can they keep it going? It's a good time to start peaking in college basketball with conference postseason tournaments coming up and March Madness right around the corner. Real curious to see how the Tigers do. I think they'll win the game. I'll throw out a Sports Daily pick for you. Take LSU and lay the 5.5 against Georgia tonight. Just a little something on it to have some fun, watch the game, or check out the score.
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't bet on LSU right now. They just played their best 2 basketball games of the year. The game against Tennessee, I thought, was their best game of the year. 6 days later or whatever, 6-7 days later, they play Auburn. They looked even better against Auburn. And
they've been getting very consistent play out of Javonte Smart and Cam Thomas. These guys have been very good the last 3 games. They can keep that up, accented by the rest of the guys out there, and a couple of guys off the bench are performing well. Like I said, it's a good time to start peaking if you're a college basketball team, and LSU's, all the arrows are pointing that they're doing that right now.
Right now, LSU tied for second in the SEC with Arkansas. Both have a 9-4 record. Those 2 teams do play in Fayetteville the last game, last day of the regular season. LSU's got Georgia tonight, Vanderbilt, and then Arkansas on the road, who's ranked. LSU, most projections at Tommy have LSU as the number 8 seed. If they're to get to a number 7 seed, what do you think has to happen if they're going to get off that 8-9 line?
Get off that 8-9 line, beat Georgia, beat Vanderbilt, somehow find a way to win against Arkansas. Arkansas would be the best of those three. And then make some noise in the SEC tournament up in Nashville. Make some noise, make a little run. And then, of course, a little that'll depend on what happens elsewhere. Does anybody else stumble a little bit? Does anybody else drop down? But they need to get themselves ready to be ready to jump up to that 7 spot if some other teams, fall down a little bit.
LSU 14-6 overall, and 9-4 in the conference. I think if they do win their next 3 games, it doesn't matter what they do in the SEC tournament. I think they'll be a 7 seed. That would put them at 12-4 in the SEC. If they don't if they don't win at Arkansas, they have to beat Georgia. They have to beat Vanderbilt. If they don't win, they don't win at Arkansas. I think as long as they play them, 5-6 points, within 5 or 6 points. And if they go over to the SEC tournament and win a game, then I think that's a coin flip if they make it to 7. I think that they still have a shot there. But I just don't want to see them have to play Alabama until the finals of the SEC tournament. So hopefully they can somehow end up on the opposite sides of the bracket. LSU baseball Wednesday night back in action. LSU basketball tonight. TK, tell us what's going on at Court Street Cafe.
Well, Court Street Cafe today, the lunch special is meatloaf. I can smell it back there in the kitchen. It's really good. You got to check it out. And they want you to know that, hey, Fridays, they're good for Lent. They got a boiled shrimp special Friday evening. As always, and all-you-can-eat fried fish on Friday evenings. You got the steak night on Thursday night, the Sunday brunch with the mimosas and the Bloody Marys. 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner. 2 minutes on the other side of the Mississippi River Bridge, 805 Court Street in Port Allen. Easy to find, plenty of parking. You got a little patio. As this weather warms up a little bit, you can sit out there and have something to eat. They got a little bar here in the back if you want a cold beer on the way home or meet some friends for a cocktail. Court Street Cafe. Jason and the staff do a great job. Don't forget the boiled shrimp special starts this Friday. Crawfish coming very soon. That cold snap kind of put a little dent in the crawfish process for everybody, including Court Street Cafe. But they're going to have it soon, and we'll let you know about it. They'll let you know. Just connect on Facebook and Instagram. Court Street Cafe, Port Allen. You'll get all the info. Like I said, meatloaf is the lunch special today. A little mashed potatoes, green beans, and salad. $9.99. That's a great deal. I've had many things here on the menu, and we encourage folks to check out Court Street Cafe. We're here on Tuesdays. You're always welcome to come out, visit, and hang around, eat lunch, whatever it might be. Court Street Cafe. Check them out.
Tommy, before we go, the report coming that the Rockets, Houston Rockets in basketball, have released. They waive DeMarcus Boogie Cousins. Why is this interesting? Well, remember Boogie Cousins, who was drafted 5th overall in 2010 out of Kentucky. For his career, his average 20 and 10 over the last decade. And the last 2 or 3 years really hasn't been hurt. Last year tore his Achilles before he ever played a game for the Lakers. He was going to be that veteran minimum guy to kind of help them. He got a ring, but he didn't do anything. This year he's the backup center for the Rockets. Remember what a big deal it was when the Pelicans got Boogie Cousins. They had Anthony Davis. They had Boogie Cousins. And Boogie Cousins did not want to take the max deal. And instead, he chose to play a year to be a free agent. He didn't want to, he wanted to get on the market, be able to pick his spot, be able to pick his money. And instead, he rolled the dice. Well, he tore his Achilles tendon when he was playing so well for the Pelicans back in February of 18, I believe, 2018. Has obviously not been the same. We're 3 years later. He's a shell of his former self, but still healthy enough to contribute. There's a lot of rumor that he may end up in New Orleans. The Rockets guaranteed his $2.3 million salary. The Pelicans have a spot. He would be a nice fit. But Tommy, we always as fans look at players and go, they should be loyal to a city. They should, they should do what they need to do to help the team with the cap and all that. This is an example of why you shouldn't always do that. This guy rolled the dice. This guy could have taken a guaranteed deal, big deal earlier. Instead, he rolled the dice to try to pick his spot and all this stuff, and it backfired. And the guy, this guy is going to make $100 million less than he should have had he just taken the deal.
Well, you said it. He rolled the dice. He took a chance. When he made that decision, he thought it was the best decision. I don't know if he's going to end up back in New Orleans. Maybe he can be a guy, give him a few minutes off the bench and, contribute. Big bodies are always good, but we'll wait and see how that works out.
By the way, Boogie Cousins in Houston, 9.6 points a game and 7.6 rebounds. That was 9 and 6 was his average. He only shot, though, 37% from the floor in 25 games with the Rockets. There's a lot of buzz that he may possibly end up in New Orleans with the Pelicans. He's Tommy Krysan. I'm Ronnie Rance. We'll be back with more Sports Shorts Daily this Thursday from Tremonti's Meat and Seafood. Don't forget, go by Court Street Cafe all week long, and they got the great Lenten specials on Friday. That's in Port Allen, right around the corner from Avenue B, Buzzy Heidel's old stomping ground. We'll see you Thursday. Have a good one, TK.